Well, no, I took that cat as actually being a character from the book that I don't want to reveal just yet.
Oh, really?
Remember?
Oh, I don't.
I can tell you because we can edit it out. It's the cat.
Ooh, interesting.
Remember?
Oh, wow.
But anyway, don't put that in the pot.
Welcome back to Shout on TV American Gods Edition, the unofficial podcast companion piece for the hit Starz series American Gods. I'm one of your co-hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me is my main man, Gene Lyons.
The only thing that scares me is being forgotten.
And this is our fan email episode where we look back on this week's episode of American Gods and provide our feedback on the top listener emails for the week in a little segment we call the American Gods Confessional. This week's episode was entitled Head Full of Snow. You spent your Tuesday listening to an hour of us on our ideas of the episode during our deep dive. Now it's our turn to hear from you. As we talked on the deep dive, both Big D and I really enjoyed this episode. What was your take on the audience and what they sent in?
What's interesting is we spoke after episodes 1 and 2, and I said people were giving really short emails. There wasn't a lot of guessing. There wasn't a lot of theorizing. Episode 3 changed something for the viewers because suddenly we're getting these longer emails that really talking about the significance of events. And I think that's really speaking to we're getting under the skin of these characters now. We're getting a little deeper into them. So I think it was a big episode for the show, for the characters on the show, and for the viewers.
One thing that we did get wrong right in the beginning, it was in our cold open, was the cat god. And I think you tweeted this out because the first things we got were emails and comments on shoutontv.com about how we screwed the pooch on that one.
Yeah, so what happened was, let me give you, so my best friend, Victoria, is a huge cat lover. She has Egyptian, half sleeve tattoo, and her cat's name is Isis. Her actual cat, who rest in peace, Isis. Isis passed a few years back. But anyway, somehow in my head, I got Isis was the cat. And then I was listening to the episode and I was like, what the shit am I talking about? So yeah, it's Bastet. Yeah. So also known as Aileros, which is Greek for cat.
So we posted a link on our website on shoutontv.com if you want to know more about that. But we did determine that it actually is a god and it's Bastet.
Well, in the book?
No, like in the TV show, in the show that we watched in episode 3, the cat that pushes Mrs. Fadil into the duat.
So Bastet is cat goddess, but that's not who
You don't think that's the character that we're seeing.
Bast.
Yeah, Bast.
Yeah,
that's
so
who
it's
it is.
Bastet. Yeah, but I didn't want to.
No, again, it's Bast.
How should we do it to? Okay,
no,
okay, I got it.
People wrote in and said it's Bast.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you've never listened to the American Gods Confessional, here's how this goes. We take the top emails of the week that we receive from our listener fan base, and we read them and respond to them. Every week, inevitably, we have too many emails that we can't read for time, or it's duplicate topics, but we do put those on our website, shoutontv.com. You can go to the confessional section and join the conversation there in the comments section. If you want to write in every week, our email address is hosts@shoutontv.com. Gene, you did the curation. You went through the emails. How many do we have, and what do you think the quality is versus the last couple weeks?
So we have 5 incredibly high quality emails this week. It was really hard to cut them down, actually. I started out with, I think, 10 that I thought were real gems and cut them down to 5, mainly because a lot of them were really good but talking about the same stuff. So some of the stuff that they're talking about is really the purpose of episode 3. What was the overall motif? And then, obviously, there was writing in on we have a gay listener who wrote in about the Jin love scene, which I think is wonderful to have that perspective. We also had a listener write in about the coming to America scenes and how they were confusing as far as the timing goes. We have a little bit of an embarrassing situation that we'll get to regarding Jeff Hamilton, one of the listeners. And finally, kind of some theorizing on what or who Shadow Moon really is.
I guess, Gene, why don't you open up the confessional booth? first. American God's confessional email comes in from Jenna. Jenna writes, "This whole episode was about connection. This was truly a beautiful episode. Mr. Jekyll Anubis taking that lady's soul and leading her onto the stairway to heaven, definitely Led Zeppelin guitar moment, and weighing her heart against a feather to see if she is worthy of a good afterlife. Mr. Wednesday's glass eye has become very noticeable, and trying to get his ancient pimp game on with Zoira, the morning star, too funny, but in a sweet way. Salim and Jin was very artful and sexy, regardless of one's sexual orientation. That whole vignette show how disconnected and unkind people are, and when you find that connection, whether it's through language or religion, the positive things can happen. When Salim woke up and found the Jin was gone, I think the experience freed him from his human form and gave Salim a new confidence and life. I need some Jin like that. Shadow and Zoira. The Midnight Star connected with a kiss, and she gave him the moon to protect him. Then Shadow got his confidence and his life back from Cernabog, because he was one strategy wonder, therefore helping Mr. Wednesday originally get what he wanted. Mad Sweeney was making negative connections because he lost his coin, got rolled in a men's room, shot at by Jack, hitchhiked, and the man who gave him a ride got a final destination steel rod to the face. And when he got to Laura's grave, she was already gone. So I'll get off my podium now, but thanks for doing such great podcasts. And this comes from Gina, or is it Gina or is it Jenna?
It's like Gina B.
She's Queen Jean 4 on Twitter. She wanted to make sure we told everyone that. So what do you think of this idea of connections being a theme for episode 3?
One of the criticisms I had of this episode, and other people expressed those on Twitter as well, was that it seemed to be a meandering episode, that things seemed disconnected, that we didn't know what one thing had to do with another. You had all these disparate stories, and why were they all crammed into episode 3? I think Gina really decoded that and talked about this idea of connection. All these come in pairs, right? Shadow and Zoria, Salim and the Jinn, Mr. Wednesday and Zoria the Morning Star, Mr. Jekyll and, Mrs. Fadil. And finally, also Mad Sweeney and just his bad luck, or really Laura, a failed connection, right? So in that sense, I think this is a really great view. In addition, it makes me want to go back and look at, again, if that's the case in episodes 1 and 2, were there other themes to each of those episodes as well? So I think that's a really good way to look at it. And again, we've talked about this before with Westworld. Professional writers for television don't just sit there and like scribble stuff down and go, yeah, let's put all this into this episode, right? The motivation is there to have some sort of overarching theme, and I think that she nailed it.
You have watched The Walking Dead before, right? So I just want to combat that, the idea that Hollywood writers just don't scribble stuff down and then just say, go film it, because that's the entire season 7 or whatever the last season was of Walking Dead. But I think what you're making here is the idea that in every scene, right, you could apply this to real life. Think of that time that you met your girlfriend, Jean, in your life. Think of that next couple weeks, that connection that you were making. You were probably a little bit more confident. You had more spring in your step, right? And it's because you make those type of connections with people, and people could notice that. In other situations, let's say you had something bad happen to you. You're disconnected. You're feeling lonely in the world. And I think that this show did a really good job of that. And when you think about the idea of gods and religion and being connected or disconnected from faith, that could also be a good allegory for this episode.
I like it.
Now, she calls Anubis, which was the death god, the Grim Reaper, so to speak. She calls him Mr. Jekyll as well.
Right. So that's one of the things that, people have had complaints about the show, is that when characters are presented. So this is a character that in the novel is presented just later. Many of the characters in this show are going to have different names. For instance, Mr. Wednesday, Chernabog calls him Wotan, right? I'm trying to think of other ones there. But essentially, several of the characters will have multiple names. Or again, like if you look at Bilquis, right? The Queen of Sheba. Everyone's known by different names to different tribes, different cultures, different peoples. And so that's all that is, essentially, is that Mr. Jekyll is another name for it. Just like Bastet can also be Bast. And what's interesting is, again, a lot of these, because the world is a fluid place, there is a Greek name for a point of reference for you, Greek and Roman gods. Mm-hmm. Same god, same function, 2 different names.
Yep. Zeus and Jupiter. But anyway, Gina, thank you so much for writing in. We really appreciate it. Keep those emails coming in. The next confessional email comes in from Andrew. It's entitled Gay Perspective on the Jin Salim Love Scene. He writes, "Hey guys, just listened to the Head Full of Snow episode and wanted to give a gay male perspective on the love scene. It's a little bit of a long email, so stay with me. I agree that it's huge to see a tender, hot, and complex gay love scene in the current climate, and kudos to Brian Fuller for wanting to depict a real gay scene. On another note, On your debate of tender love scene versus power play, why can't it be both? My friends and I talk a lot about sex, and both topics come up frequently. With gay men, especially masculine gay men, sex can include a lot of notions of power. The act of penetration is aggressive, figuring out who is penetrated, flipping someone over on their stomach, forcing someone down to their knees, or as the djinn does, having them stop blowing you, etc. The scene between Salim and the djinn also struck me as a very tender, loving scene, shown in the small moments. For instance, Salim touching his shoulder in the cab, or grabbing his hand in the elevator, the stare into his eyes before they kiss, and the tender way that the djinn moves Salim back onto the bed. It also definitely involved power. I would compare it in a certain way to the Bilquis worship scenes. Salim is giving himself over to the god figure and giving his body as worship. For all we know, this could be Salim's first real gay experience. He seems nervous, but Twitter-pated, excited, and hesitant. In my perspective, and through conversations with other gay men, the first time you engage in gay sex can be a terrifying, but also revelatory, which I think they reflect in the scene. With your read of the scene being set in the 80s during the height of the AIDS crisis, even the act of the djinn coming inside of Salim is both a power move and a loving act. In my opinion, coming inside of someone is the most intimate acts a gay man can perform, and having Salim allow that to happen during the AIDS epidemic with a stranger and giving his body as worship to the djinn is at once an extremely vulnerable and yet loving act. But it's also a power move on the part of the djinn, given that the impending sense of danger and the unknown presence in gay sex due to the high risk of exposure. I think it's even further reflected in the morning after. Salim is left alone and robbed of his identity, the djinn pulling the power move of having left before Salim woke up, giving Salim, a final gift of his worship, a chance to start over. It's a little give and a little take. Salim's little smile in the cab at the end really sealed the deal for me on this whole scene, and again, this comes from Drew.
Drew, I love that you wrote into this, and I was really hoping that someone would write in a gay perspective, because again, as we mentioned on the deep dive, we don't have that. We're three heterosexual males. We have a very limited worldview in that. I did want to cut back to the source copy, though, because I think that a lot of people miss what was going on in this scene, and I think that it would be useful to go to that. So in the source copy, it says, it's an hour or more before the Ifrit comes, thrusting and grinding into Salim's mouth. Salim has already come twice in this time. The djinn's semen tastes strange, fiery, and it burns Salim's throat. Salim goes to the bathroom, washes out his mouth. When he returns to the bedroom, the taxi driver is already asleep in the white bed, snoring peacefully. Salim climbs into the bed beside him, cuddles close to the Ifrit, imagining the desert on his skin. And then he goes on to say, they wake in the small hours, moving against each other, and they make love again. At one point, Salim realizes that he is crying, and the Ifrit is kissing away his tears with burning lips. Salim asks him, what is your name? He says, there's a name on my driving permit, but it is not mine. Afterwards, Salim could not remember where the sex had stopped and the dreams began. When Salim wakes, the cold sun creeping into the white room, he is alone. He also discovers that, basically all of his belongings are gone. And then it goes to a key part there. His wallet is gone, his passport, and his tickets back to Oman. Right. So and then he finds the taxi permit, again, that is not the Ifrits, it's another person, because they show in the show. That confused a lot of people. So essentially you're seeing a cycle there that they've swapped places. Mm-hmm. But those key moments where it's not just like they did it and then the guy was gone. It was they spent the night together. They woke up with each other again. And also he came in his mouth, so little bit of a change there. I
was talking to one of our listeners via Twitter today and trying to explain to them what the djinn scene really meant. You have to understand that it's not just the era that's happening. You also have to understand what's happening to Salim. Most people think that he had just arrived. I think actually it's in the show that he had been here for a week. In the book, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's been in the States for like almost 90 days, right? Or like 3 months. And still hasn't had a sale. He's more down on his luck than the show makes it out to be. So he's really looking for an escape.
Yeah, I mean, I got the sense from, again, the way it was set up in the original source material was that he was like on the verge of suicide. Like he's a failure. Like he cannot get things going and life is just miserable. And he's running out of money.
It's his brother's company. His brother doesn't like him. And again, these are spoilers. I apologize, but you just saw it. So we're going to give you some more context because hopefully that's what you came out here for. So he finds this djinn. The anglicized version of this would be most comparable to like a genie. In a lot of depictions, I'll use bedazzled as one. even though it's the devil, right? A jinn could be in Muslim lore almost compared to a demon, where it's going to give you what you want, but then kind of play a trick on you. And we've seen this, in the Twilight Zone and in movies and shows.
Yeah, and there's a word for it. In Farsi, it's shaytun. I think it's the same roughly in Arabic as well. It's very specific, like a trickster, demon, jinn.
So supposedly, based on what you're saying, is the jinn was trapped by this other driver and confined to his taxi cabs, or confined to his lamp. Think of Jafar, great cosmic powers, itty bitty living space in Aladdin. That's basically what's happened to the jinn. And then the jinn has found I don't want to say another target, but he basically uses Salim, but gives Salim something in return where Salim is accepting of that.
Yeah, you see Salim when he says, I do not grant wishes, and he puts the sunglasses on. He's smiling. He's got a little grin going there, right? He's been transformed. And then several listeners had pointed out that when we see the diner scene with the Ifrit meeting with Mr. Wednesday, he's wearing the suit. He's wearing the blue suit that Salim was wearing. So there is a reversal there.
Does that mean that he actually did love Salim, that he actually did make a connection with Salim where, yeah, it was maybe a power play, the jinn got what he was out of it, but he's still carrying on that memory of Salim. So it could be a power move, as Drew is referenced here when it comes to gay sex. You read that passage in the book that shows that he did stay the night, he kissed away the tears, he stuck around, another encounter. Does that showcase the Ifrit, even though he wanted to get out of the cab, he wanted to be free, does that still show his love for Salim?
That's an interesting take on it. One of the things that Neil Gaiman does habitually with a lot of his characters and a lot of plot lines is he's never going to give you an exact answer on it. He gives you a lot of room to interpret. And so that is one of those things. Again, with, even with Bilquis's victims, right? Are they victims? Where are they going? Right. What happens to them after? Is it bliss, or is she sending them to heaven? Like, you don't know.
Listen, I think sex with any god is probably pretty good. I feel like I'm going to be in the space cosmos with a space boner, or I'm going to be, filled with fire. I think either way, I'm on board. So thanks, Drew, for writing in. We really appreciate your take on it. Thank you so much for listening. The next American Gods Confessional email comes in from JR. JR writes, "Hey guys, I wanted to reach out after episode 3. I have read the book and almost feel like the book is saving me here. As I watched last night's episode, I feel as though if I didn't already know some of these characters, I might have been out by the end. I say this because I know in the last confessional pod, you guys had some emails that talked about being on the edge. I wonder if this episode tipped them over to stop watching. I think one American God or Coming to America vignette an episode should be enough. I felt the second story dragged, even though it is the story from the book, and it was just another reason to show animated dicks again. All in all, my wife lost interest pretty quick in the episode, and I felt the second story caused it to really falter. Finally, I have to comment on the scene where they rob the bank. It's one of my favorite parts in the book, and I think there should have been more of a conversation between Mr. Wednesday and the cop first. I mean, let's face it, the more Wednesday, the better. Thanks for all you guys do, and it comes from JR or Joe from Rhode Island. P.S. Shadow's wife saying puppy really annoys me too."
I think people were divided here. There were people who said that the gin scene was brilliant and that the bank robbery scene was stupid and ill-conceived and silly. And you had other people who said the bank robbery scene is great, but they could have done without, the gin sex scene. I think both were necessary to the story. Again, to me, the gin scene was better in copy. I love the way that it was written, where you had to piece it together yourself a little bit. It was a little more chilling. There was a sense of this grotesque transformation, but also at the same time a comfort. And I think they did a pretty good job of relaying that on screen. Again, the CGI really threw me off. Bank robbery scene, again, also really enjoyed it. The CGI once again threw me off on the marshmallow car. But really, I think that the show is really making a statement that it doesn't care what we like and what we don't like, right? It's basically saying, I am what I am, like, enjoy me or not. I do think that they are borrowing a lot, though, as W. Axel fully pointed out. You see a lot of Hannibal in here, and one of the things that was pointed out to me was several people had pointed out that the plot line of Banshee and the style of Banshee is very present here again. It's a lot of really crazed out characters, very graphic, lots of sex, hyper violent, and so I do wonder at some points, and I think there's a valid criticism people are making, that they basically took source material that said, oh, this is something we could easily process into a lot of violence, a lot of nudity, and a lot of, push a lot of people's buttons and go with that. And I hope that's not the case.
Do you think people are getting pissed off because it's animated dicks and not real dicks? Remember with the whole shame scene in Game of Thrones where Cersei Lannister, where she's walking down in front of everyone fully naked, and then it came out the next couple days that was a body double's body on her, and they had animated the entire thing. And people were like, well, blah, 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 why didn't she do that? And I really want my Cersei Lannister nude. Do you think it's a situation where they just really want their dicks nude, or do you think people are just uptight because it's a naked dick?
I don't think so. I mean, especially like in the Salim scene, I wouldn't have known the difference.
No,
it looked like a normal dick to me.
I was looking for the dick, but if you're not looking for the dick, you can barely even see that it's there.
As Big D would say, it's not engorged and aggressive. It doesn't look like it's going to attack anybody.
Should we have a cute name? Should we call it like a zucchini? Should we zucchini emoticon?
How is zucchini cute?
No, I'm just saying, there might be people listening to this at work that don't want us to say the D word over and over again.
Peen? I don't know.
Peen? My unit? My Johnson?
Wiener?
Wiener works.
Yeah.
It's a little second grade. The name of this podcast is Shout on TV, so.
Yeah, no one's listening to this at work without headphones.
But the main question is, do you believe that there should stick to one vignette per episode? You talked about how in the deep dive, the vignettes, these are sometimes better than the entire episode. They put 2 in this episode. What Joe is saying here is that he doesn't want that. He only wants to see one backstory per episode.
I don't think that's what threw people off so much. It's that we've been programmed now that there's going to be something that says somewhere in America, and on this one there wasn't. It just went straight into it.
I think there was. There was somewhere in America. There was 2 somewhere in Americas.
Yeah, but somewhere in America in Queens, it was written on the side of the building.
So you think people need it written out like calligraphy in the first
I think it threw people off because some people were also like Gillian wrote in and said that she was thrown off by the fact that it wasn't really spelled out, and then she didn't notice that the clothing had changed, right? Or that until we pointed it out. And I like doing a little thinking, and it makes sense to me. So I don't need that, but I get what they're saying. If they establish the rules, and the rules are we're going to tell you every time, and then they don't, that seems kind of unfair.
Yeah. The other thing that I'll say about the nudity on this show is
You're still on that.
No, listen, people are writing in about it. That seems to be a topic of discussion where people are like, well, my dad is not going to watch this anymore because there's too much male nudity. Understand that this is coming from the source material, and it's usually for a purpose, right? It's not for the sake of having male nudity, where sometimes other shows, it really truly is boobs and dragons.
Well, I think all this could have been done without showing the parts. Look, Shakespeare didn't have any nudity, right? And they did just fine telling stories.
Are you sure Shakespeare didn't have some nudity?
Yeah, it was Elizabethan England. Of course not.
You don't think they had like a late night Shakespeare show? They had like an 11 o'clock?
Raj, they didn't have women in it. It was all men.
Yeah, again. Yeah, just like in...
How are you going to show a naked woman who's a man? Tuck it.
I do me. Yeah, so thank you so much, Joe, for writing in. Our next American Gods confessional email comes in from Jeff. Jeff writes in, hey guys, so I think a funny mix-up occurred. Oh, this is the Jeff W. Axel Foley thing that you previewed. Okay.
Yeah, before you even start, this is all my fault. Go ahead.
So he writes, I think a funny mix-up occurred. You read my second part email on your last confessional. I was psyched to hear my name again on the air, but then got confused when you read my part 2 as I had no memory of writing it. My first concern was that I blacked out and started drunk emailing all my favorite podcasts. But things got even weirder when I found myself agreeing with the content of part 2. I immediately rushed to my sent email folder to find out how many other emails I had sent late this night. Unfortunately, there was nothing there and no record that I had ever sent part 2. Here is what I actually think happened. I think the part 2 that you attached to me, to my name, that you gave me credit for, was actually W. Axel Foley. His first email was pretty negative, and the part 2 fits with what he said. I'm pretty sure that's how it happened, so if you can confirm or deny that, that would be great, because I am super curious. If I did in fact write the email, please reply to it, because it might be some time for some serious self-reflection. Lastly, I appreciate the feedback you gave me on my part 1, and I think the mix made up for good radio. Looking forward to your next episode. This comes from Jeff H.
Yeah, Jeff, you're right. So what happened was essentially when we get multiple emails from the same person on the same topic, and this happens more often than you would think. Someone has a thought, and then they basically just treat it like text messaging, and then they'll have another thought, and then another thought within the span of 1 hour, and they'll write us like 3 or 4 in a row. And we usually will combo those so that you get one complete thought as opposed to, having to throw away 3/4 of what they were thinking. So in this case, Axel had written, and then you had written, and then Axel had written again. So it looked like this one immediately preceded yours. And so I thought, oh, okay, cool. Like this makes sense. Like it's Jeff again. It fits so well, like you said, with what you were saying. I just thought, okay, it's the same, it's the same thing. So anyway, sorry about that. But again, great minds think alike. I hope Axel's still listening. I don't know if he's quit on the show yet.
Axel, he seems on the fence. I think he's sticking through it for right now, but we love our boy Axel Foley. He hosts a couple of really good podcasts. What was the email about? Because I was not part of last week's confessional. I was stuck in Denver.
Yeah, so Jeff wrote in and he said that he read the book and found it really boring, and he wanted to know how they're going to stretch the book out into multiple seasons. Then he asked, like, what do we like about the book? What do we not like about the book? Whatever. And then he wrote it, and then there was a follow-up one that said, sorry I was so negative on my email. Here's what I got to say. And I was like, oh, wow, Jeff is, and it really sounds, the voice of the email is so similar. But no, it actually was Axel Foley's follow-up to his incredibly negative take, which basically said that this show was ripping off Hannibal, essentially that he didn't want to see a complete copy of another show that they had done.
You hire a showrunner for a certain style, and you're going to do with what you're most comfortable with and what made you the best. So an example would be, I just started watching Fargo. Fargo, great show. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the showrunner of Fargo also the showrunner for Legion on FX?
Yeah, it's Noah Hawley, and he's actually going to be doing a sci-fi drama with Reese Witherspoon called Pale Blue. So busy guy.
So if you've watched Fargo and you've watched Legion on FX, you can tell that this is a Noah Hawley production. So even though that it's borrowing concepts from another show, I think that's kind of what people want to do. Like, that's why Monet's paintings look similar. That's how you know a Monet painting is a Monet painting. That's how you know a Van Gogh painting is a Van Gogh painting. At the end of the day, these individuals are creatives. They want their stamp. They want their impression upon their projects.
Sure, Raj, but I would counter a George Lucas is a George Lucas. When there's a vast difference, though, between Star Wars and Willow, as we saw on shatthemovies.com.
You could tell that when it was bad, you knew it was George Lucas bad.
Oh, yeah. Brownies, Ewoks, what's the difference?
Thanks so much for writing in, Jeff. We really appreciate it. Our final American Gods confessional of the week comes in from Ben. Ben writes in, hey, I discovered you guys with Westworld. You were by far my favorite Westworld podcast. This is my first time writing in. Point to note, I haven't read the book, and I've been trying not to be spoiled by book knowledge, so I have no idea if my theory is correct. If any of your hosts have read the book, please don't confirm or deny. I just want to put this out there and see where the other show watchers think. In the scene where I Love Lucy talks to Shadow, she says that she's impressed with how he handled Technical Boy. Said it was straightforward and effective, and that Tech Boy underestimated him. So I did some research and found out about an Egyptian moon god, called Khonsu. There's even a part of Khonsu's mythology that involves playing a game of checkers against another Egyptian god. Also, I vaguely remember Wednesday talking to Shadow about being forgotten and said, no one will forget you. It seems like the gods know more about Shadow than he does. If gods are clamoring for him, he must be something more than just a man. Yours is one of the few podcasts about the show that doesn't leak book spoilers. Please keep that up. It's been really annoying having to rip my headphones off because other spoilers in other podcasts, and this comes from Benjamin.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Several people have asked this question, and it makes me think that they're doing a great job on the show, and Neil Gaiman did a great job with the novel of developing Shadow, in the sense that right around this point in the book, the natural question is, why does everyone care about him? Like, in essence, Mr. Wednesday could get anybody to be a bodyguard. There's too much happenstance there, right? About Laura dying, Robbie dying, Shadow being so necessary to this plan. There's a war coming. We've established that. And essentially, he's going to play some role in it. And that leaves a mystery now. So you've got multiple mysteries going on. Who are these gods? What is Shadow's role in all of this? And how is it going to turn out? None of that stuff is revealed right now. And as Big D has also pointed out, do the old gods even stand a chance? And if so, how?
One of the concepts that Big D has talked about is that the empty vessel, right? That's why old gods and new gods are searching out this someone who has nothing to believe in, per the Zoyra sisters, and that someone like that can be easily manipulated or used, especially if they have latent powers. Think of Rey from Star Wars, right? She didn't know about the Force. She didn't know that she had this power, but once it was presented for her, I'm sure you're going to have forces of evil and good. You're going to have light and dark going after them, similar to what probably happened with Kylo Ren. Here you have this half Jedi son of Leia, and is being taught by her uncle, this one of the best Jedis ever, Luke Skywalker. But he's tormented by even Luke Skywalker, the forces of evil and the dark side want to come and get you. That's why the Jedis try to train him young, is because you're impressionable, right? When you're too old, other emotions can come in and turn you to the Sith.
I love that you found a way to bring Star Wars back in. It's been a long time since you pulled one of those Star Wars switcheroos, so way to go.
Appreciate that.
Also, side note for the listeners, Kylo Ren is the fastest growing name for baby boys in America right now.
Kylo Ren, like the full name? Is it Kylo or Kylo? Is it Kylo? It's Kylo first name, middle name Ren, or is it Kylo Ren first name?
No, it's Kylo Ren. The Kylo first name, Ren middle name, like Billy Joe or Jimmy Bob.
I don't really even get that, because there was really nothing cool to that character. I would rather name my kid Darth Vader, or who's the cool guy from episode 1? The only cool guy, Darth Maul. I would name my kid Darth Maul before I would name my kid Kylo Ren.
Yeah, I would name my kid Sidious Lions. That's way better.
Yeah, Han Solo. I would name my kid Han Solo before I would name my kid Kylo Ren. And there was one part that I misread, and he thinks that basically the fact that he was able to destroy the goons, Technical Boy's goons, Shadow was, could this be an indication that Shadow Moon himself is a god but doesn't know it, right? So we talked about the Jedi powers.
Yeah, I'm surprised that a lot of people have just kind of waved away that entire scene where, Shadow is sitting there hanging from a tree, and all of a sudden people are exploding in buckets of blood, and it's raining, and what does all that mean? So I'm glad that Benjamin brought it up. Again, to honor the fact that we're not doing spoilers, I don't want to go too far into that, but it is a great observation, something great to bring up, and something to think about as this moves forward is, what was the force that did that? Was it Shadow himself? Did he have help? What happened there?
Yeah, and also Khonshu mythology. I think, listen, that's a very interesting take, and I applaud you for doing some research and presenting that. So I have not gone into Khonshu mythology, but we'll post a link on it if you want to learn more about that. But Benjamin, we don't want to do too much spoiling. We've heard the same thing from other message boards about this show, about other podcasts. And we even asked the same question in our first deep dive of, what does the audience want? So hopefully we're doing that. We're doing a good job of diving into some of the things that have happened on screen without telling too far of what happens in the future. So those are the top 5 confessional emails that we received this week. Again, you can go and see them in their entirety on shadontv.com. Click on the confessional. You can also see all the emails from this week, and you can join in the conversation just by clicking comment right there. While they're on the website, though, Gene, they can also do something and get a shout out.
That's correct. Yeah, if you listen to our deep dive, you've heard our shout outs earlier this week. We do them weekly, and basically if you'd like to show your support for the podcast, hear your name on the podcast, show all your friends, you can go on shadowntv.com. As you scroll down, you'll see a little slide out that asks you if you want to get a shout out. Just put your name in there, and we will read it on the air every Tuesday on the deep dive.
You can also, if you want just more than a shout out and you want to write in, our email address once again is hosts@shadontv.com and be part of the conversation. We typically record at around 5:30, 6:30 Pacific. So if you get your emails in before then on Wednesday, 5:30, 6:30 Pacific, there's a good chance of it getting read on the confessional. So with that being said, that concludes this week's episode of Shadow on TV American Gods Edition. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram @Shadow on TV. You can also search for us on Facebook. Just follow Shadow on TV Podcast. Our website, once again, is shadontv.com. That email, hosts@shadontv.com. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, be sure to leave a 5-star review. That really helps the podcast grow. You can also check on our sister podcast, Shat the Movies, where we review the best 80s and 90s movies from our childhood that you, the audience, vote for. You can check out all the information there and vote on upcoming movies at shatthemovies.com. We've got a special release this week with the new Alien movie. You guys went back and watched Aliens and reviewed it. I was not on the show, but it was you, Big D, and then a special guest host.
Yes, we had JB, who was a Wayland Corporation historian who had a lot to tell us about kind of some of the work that went into making Aliens. It is a phenomenal movie, and we're just gushing over this. It ends up being one of our top movies that we've ever reviewed, and I only wish you could have been there because it is a really fantastic movie. So in light of Alien Covenant coming around just around the corner, we only hope that it can hold up to the amazing work that was done in Aliens. I still cannot believe that movie was released in 1986.
Yeah, the movie still holds up. If you haven't watched Aliens in a while, it still scares the crap out of you, especially if you watch it with, in the dark, with all the lights off and nobody home. The other thing, though, is were you a big Aliens versus Predator guy? Did you enjoy that concept? Why aren't they making more of that? I really enjoyed that. The Predators movie was really good as well.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Aliens vs. Predator didn't do too well in theaters, oddly. I thought it was a really fun concept of, like, basically there's this epic battle that goes on between the aliens and the Predator, and humans kind of caught in the middle of it. And I thought it was a really fun movie. I don't know. Again, thankfully, as a comic franchise, it's had a lot of popularity, but the movie didn't really do that well, I don't think.
So in the Star Wars universe, there's Jedi that are across all alien races. Is there a Jedi xenomorph, or is there a Jedi Predator?
Well, I mean, I think by definition, a xenomorph would just throw off the Force entirely. So I don't think you could continue to be a Jedi. Predator, though, that'd be pretty cool.
I've seen a Sith Predator at Comic-Con. Like, it's got it almost looks like Darth Maul, and it has wears all black. I could see a Sith Predator would be pretty cool. But then there's other good Predators. Like there's ones who are just they're good hunters, right? They come from a long race of hunters.
Look at it this way: if you went to a planet and there were 6 billion of something on it, what's 1 or 2 gone? Like, who cares?
That's true.
They're just humans.
How did we end up here? Anyway.
I have no idea.
On behalf of my co-hosts, Gene Lyons and Big D, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join all three of us next Tuesday. Is it Monday or Tuesday? We'll try to get it out on Monday, but it's probably going to be Tuesday for our deep dive review of episode 4 of American Gods. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Take care, good night, and hail the old gods.